Hello and welcome to the February meeting of the Seneca County IDA. As usual, virtual meeting. We'll keep our mics muted while we're not speaking, and then if you can identify yourselves when you start. I think the first order of business, as everyone knows, this is Valerie's last IDA meeting, and definitely want to thank Valerie for being on the IDA board for the last 5+ years. Valerie is one of the ones that certainly appreciated her experience and valuable insight and advice. I think she was the board member that I could always rely on to comb over every single document and find detail and discover any little errors, any inconsistencies, and you missed crossing a T, dotting an I, she'd find it, and certainly will be missed.
Well, thanks, Steve. After being executive director of Geneva's IDA, it's been interesting to sit on the other side of the table. It's always been my hope, and continues to be, that sometime the public will come to appreciate the work that IDA board members do. It's not easy, we all know it, and it truly is work. And, you board members put in the time for sure. And thanks for allowing me at the table for the last 5 years. It's been fun sometimes.
And frustrating other times.
Yes, indeed.
And as a token of our appreciation, you'll be receiving, or should have received, a plaque thanking you for your service.
Oh, thank you. I have not received it yet, but thank you.
It's probably stuck in your snowbank somewhere.
Yeah, or who knows, in USPS eternity, maybe.
So, with that, I think our first order of business is approval of the IDA minutes from our January 7th meeting. Any comments or questions on the minutes? If not, could I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve, Menzo.
Valerie, second.
Kelly?
Ms. Bassett?
Yes.
Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Mr. Pace?
Yes.
Okay. Next item.
I'm not done yet, sorry.
I was going to say, I lost something here.
Mr. Bruce Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Tom Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Shipley?
Yes.
Mr. Trout?
Yes.
Mr. Wadhams?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Next order of business is the financial statements. Now, what we have is in your packet had the typical monthly financial statements. In addition, we have the annual summary prepared by Bob for 2020. Since really there's not that much in the 2020, December 2020 items, we'll concentrate mainly on the 2020 summary for the year. The only real highlight I do have for the 20 December monthly statement is we did receive the Fayette Solar project agency fee. So that was good. So Bob, if you could want to go briefly over the, especially the annual summary.
All right, I can do that. You'll find the documentation for that in the briefing memo. And I believe there might have been a duplicate copy, so there was 2 sets that were actually part of that package. but it's only really one set I'd be concerned with. I'm going to be looking to start with a comparative balance sheet. What that does, it compares December 31, 2020 with December 31, 2019. I'm going to briefly go through some of these. When we're looking at our cash position, our total checking and savings balance at the end of December of 2020 was $2,980,000. That is a net change of $150,000 over the previous year, or 5.3% change percentage-wise. I did note on the schedule the CDs. There's 2 CDs that will be coming due, and the CD balance is $1,045,000. Accounts receivable ending balance was $177,000. That's up $70,000 over the previous year. Other current liabilities measured $419,000. That's down $100,000 from the previous year. And total current liabilities measured $3,577,000. That's up $120,000 over the previous year, or 3.48%. The change in fixed assets is attributed to depreciation. There were no other changes within the year affecting the fixed asset balances. Now, when we go into 2021, that number will be significantly changed for a couple of reasons. One is the sewer line issue and the finalization of the disposition for Hillside. Other assets measured $122,000. That's $54,000 over the previous year. Our total assets measured $5,677,000. That's an increase of $118,000 over the previous year, or 2.12%. Looking at liabilities, current liabilities measured $204,000 compared to $109,000 the previous year. That's a $94,000 change. On a percentage basis, up 86.17%. Long-term liabilities measured $4,600 compared to $11,000 last year. It's a net change of minus $7,330. When we look at the equity position, our total equity at the end of December was $5,468,000 compared to $5,437,000 the previous year, an increase of $30,871. And the bottom line, liabilities and equity again measure our asset base of $5,677,000. Looking at the P&L statement on a comparative basis with the previous year, total income was $335,480 for the year 2020, compared to $225,428 for the year 2019. That's an increase of $110,000. Total expenses for 2020 were $517,000 compared to $613,000 for the previous year, a net change of $96,000. A lot of that had to do with, in this case, the payroll cost because of the change in the executive director's position. Though there was an increase in benefits, but that was also due to a change in the medical benefits being provided by the agency. Other income, net ordinary income was a minus $181,698 for 2020 compared to a minus $388,196. It's a positive change in that arena of $206,000. And I've noted in the write-up that some of the differences that affected that particular change number. When we look at other net income and other expenses, The net number is for 2020, combining income against expense, 212,569 compared to 265,555 a year previous, or a net change of 52,968. In this case, a lower number. Bottom line, positive number for 2020, net income being 30,871 against last year's negative position of $122,000. That's a positive increase between years of $153,000. I'll just go through another schedule quickly. And that references the differences between actual and budget for the year 2020. Total income, again, was $335,000 for 2020 against a budgeted $301,000. That's a positive variance of $34,000 in that category. Total expenses were $517,178 against a budget of $566,000. Again, a positive variance of $49,000 between budget and actual. Other income expense on a net basis were $212,569 against a budget of $299,489. In that case, it's a negative variance of $86,000. Bottom line, we ended the year with a $30,871 final position against the budget of $34,191. A minor variance of $3,300. Again, the document also includes line item details of some of the variances. That's my quick review of the documents that were provided in your briefing memo. Are there any questions at this point?
No, well, I think, thanks, Bob. I think just a few little highlights that I just wanted to briefly mention. My review of the 2020. One is I think most everyone knows, the IDA has been operating the Sampson Memorial Veteran Cemetery for almost the last 10 years for the county. And if you look further in there, as you see, to date, we've spent over $841,000 of our own funds to maintain the cemetery for the county. Right. That agreement ends in June, so we'll be losing that expense in a few months. The other item is the revolving loan fund. There's really been no activity. We're wondering if we'd get a larger increase in activity due to the pandemic, and we haven't had anything in calendar 2020. Right. So we still have that to go. And as Bob said, the last thing, hopefully in 2021, we'll be transferring the sewer over to the county and town. That and Hillside are fixed assets. Land infrastructure should definitely decrease over the year. It'll have a major impact on our fixed asset position compared to year-end 2020. Yeah. So any other questions or comments on the financial statements? If not, can I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
A second?
Second, this is Benzo. Did you get me? Second?
Yes.
Benzo? Okay.
Yep. So Kelly, for roll?
Ms. Bassett?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Bluthman?
I'm having here trouble with your audio, Kelly, but if that was for me, Bruce Murray, that's a yes.
Okay. Mr. Tom Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Shipley?
Yes.
Mr. Trout?
Yes.
Mr. Bottoms?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Yeah, motion carried. It's just a little hard to hear.
Yeah, Kelly, usually can hear you pretty good, but I can hardly hear anything you're saying today.
Okay, I'll switch to my phone. Maybe it's just audio in here.
Usually you're pretty good, but I can't hear hardly anything you're saying today.
Okay.
Next, IDA committee appointments for 2021. Hopefully, I guess one comment, hopefully with new members coming in, getting everybody on board, we'll be able to expand this more for next year. For this year, governance committee is between Tom Keim, Bruce Murray, and myself. And audit and finance committee stays the same, essentially with Tom Keim, Menzo Case, and myself. And for the appointment of a new member to the EDC Board of Directors, getting a little feedback here. We've selected Jeff Shipley to be on the EDC Board of Directors, to be there along with Tom Keim and myself. Next item on the list is approval of transfer of Army's retained environmental sites. So Sarah, if you could go with that.
Sure. I'm actually going to direct that one to Pat, who is much more knowledgeable about the history of this than I am.
Okay. The Army has completed their environmental cleanup of 11 sites on the former depot, which encompasses about 283 acres. And they're now ready to transfer those parcels to the IDA. For those long-timers on the IDA board, you'll recall that there was a memorandum of agreement signed by the IDA and the Army back in 2003 that stipulated that once environmental cleanup was completed, then the Army had an obligation to deed that property to the IDA. So that's where we are right now with the 11 sites and the 283 acres. In your packet was a yellow sheet of paper. The title of it was Exhibit F, and on that it showed the different locations where these 11 sites are located. They are all in the town of Barrick, and they include acreage in what we called the conservation area, and then also the old Army exclusion area, which is now occupied by First Light. The Army has provided a draft deed, and it has been reviewed by our legal counsel and is in order. So we are ready to do the first part of this, which will be requiring a motion which will accept the Army deed for the transfer of these 283 acres and authorizing the executive director to execute transfer documents.
This is Tom. Who did we have look over all the environmental aspect of this for us? And has Rob looked over the legal documents?
He's looked over the deeds.
But has anybody looked over the Army's environmental final assessment that says everything's okay? Have we had anybody look that over?
Other than myself, no.
Don't we think we should have someone do that? Does the Army retain, do we have any legal, maybe Rob can answer the legal aspect of this, do we have any legal document from the Army that says if out in the future there's a problem that arises of something that they didn't clean up, are they responsible for it or not? Or they're done and done?
It's part of the deed.
Yeah, they're responsible for under the statute, the commissioning statute. They're responsible for any contamination, that was there and caused during the period of time that the Army owned it. Right? So the findings that they're required to make before they transfer the property to the IDA is that the property's been, evaluated and cleaned to the extent required by the statute. I don't know that we've ever had an independent review done. Pat, you might know the answer to this, but I don't, as far as I know, we've never had an independent review done of that finding.
No, we have not.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that we go out and do test borings and do a review of what's already been done there. I'm just saying and maybe you know that well enough, Rob, I'm just saying from a sign off on their environmental review that they've done in the write-up, have they done everything appropriate that should be done? And somebody that reviewing this that knows what they're doing, would they concur with that?
Yeah, we don't really know the answer to that. I mean, we're relying on the fact that, the Army's doing what's required by the statute. That's what they're certifying to when they present the property to the IDA, for transfer. So,
And it's been signed off by both DEC and EPA.
Okay, that was going to be my question. The DEC and EPA have both approved this, but I agree with Tom. We got to make sure there's something in the agreement that I guess I missed that. Rob, is there a time limit, or is it a forever clause in there? Anything ever shows up in those 288? I think you said 283 acres of land. It comes back on them, or there is a time limit on that?
There's no time limit.
The statute doesn't provide for a time limit. I mean, if there's anything there, they're obligated to present the property in accordance with, the requirements of the statute. If they haven't done that, then, the obligation remains with them regardless of time. Them being the Army.
Mm-hmm. The statute being set by the EPA and the DEC.
Well, the statute that was adopted to provide for the administration of the transfer of these properties, these former military bases, once they were closed, right? And as part of that, they have to go through an environmental review, which then has to be reviewed by both the EPA and the DEC. So that's part and parcel of the process that's required by the statute.
Okay.
Rob, yeah, this is Steve. Is there any difference between this transfer and previous transfers of the previous thousands of acres?
No, it's the same process. It's just taken longer. Well, because of bureaucracy for one, and then also, it's taken longer for the Army to address the issues that were attendant to these particular parcels in order to be able to issue the finding of suitability to transfer that's required before they can transfer it to the IDA in accordance with the statute. But no, I mean, this is the same process that has been that the Army's gone through since this started in 2003. Unless there's something I'm not aware of, Pat, as far as I know, it's the same process.
Correct.
Yeah, but the main difference is here you have a lot more environmentally affected property than the past properties. So I just wanted to, ask them the question as to whether we're feeling comfortable taking ownership of this. I think a lot of people sitting around this table, if they're taking it personally, probably wouldn't do so. But this is a little different.
Are any of these lands in the Earl Martin's? None of these lands are in Earl Martin's deal, right? It's all set.
Yes, they are.
They are?
200,
okay.
237 acres are in parcel.
Are in Earl Man. So this is going to pass through to him then, right?
Correct.
Well, this is Tom Murray. I have a question about acreage and environmental sites. Does that limit the use of the transferred properties we're talking about as far as what they can be used for?
Yes, that's correct.
I think yes.
Yeah, there's restrictions that are part and parcel of the deed.
This is Jeff. I guess a follow-up question to all this is, if we accept it, does that mean they have to accept it as well?
Yes.
You mean Martin's?
Martin and First Light.
Or First Light. Do they both
First Light,
have
yeah.
to accept, or can they just say, no, we don't want it because we don't want to deal with whatever is on there, so take it back?
Martin's part of the part of what Earl Martin agreed to was that as the parcels were transferred from the Army, he would then take title to those. The First Light lease I'm not familiar with, but I'm assuming, I believe that's the same, there's the same provision in there. Pat, you might be able to speak to that.
Yes, it is. Plus, they're anxious to get buildings that are included in this.
What's the acreage that's left? The 30-some acres or whatever, Pat. What is that? Why is that staying?
Well, there's 403 acres that'll be remaining after this tree. And there are 2 environmental sites that open burning, open detonation.
It's still left.
Still left, right.
Yep.
The question becomes, is the board comfortable with, as Pat and Rob explained, having the Army go through their decontamination process, having it reviewed and approved by DEC and EPA, that we would accept that and agree to accept the property, and then after this, agree to transfer this to First Light and Deer Haven Park? Or I guess my question is, if we don't do that, is there anyone, what would anyone actually do in terms of reviewing this and researching this if DEC and EPA do their approval?
Well, Steve, just because they approved it doesn't mean, this has already been approved with limited use ability. I do recall that. And, what that all means and how it's worded, I'm sure there's a lot of releases and things that are done in a little different fashion. I don't think that proves this is pristine and clean. And I'm not saying we don't take this. I just want to make sure we understand what the terms and conditions are. And I'm sure somebody could read it that would have better commentary than some of us. But I'm not totally opposed to taking it. One question I would have, instead of passing the title through us, can that go directly to First Light and to Martin's?
No, it cannot.
And why is that?
It's because the IDA is the designated local redevelopment authority, which means that all land transfers have to go through the LRA.
Okay.
This is Bruce Murray here. You know, listening to the conversation, obviously I'm not as familiar with the topic, but because these are probably parcels that fall into a unique category, maybe the language around the documentation is a little unique too. I would sort of feel better if someone who was, I mean, both the Army wants out of it, so they may find language that is useful to them that we may not find as useful to us. So having someone take just a read through, I don't think we need to do a core sample, but just reading through it by someone who's seen one of these things like this before would give me a little more comfort.
You mean reading through the deed?
No, the agreements,
No.
the releases.
The releases. I mean, these seem to be at the core of some of the at the heart of some of the issues related to the property. So and they're trying to get out as quickly as possible, I'm sure. So we should just take one last look.
Actually, they were supposed to be completed with a cleanup by 2012, so they're 8 years behind schedule. And we have agreed that once they are to complete cleanup, that we will accept.
I guess, I mean, they're just trying to get it off their desk. Again, I'll stop there, but I think it could use another read.
So the deed that they provided summarizes, the hazardous substances that they've identified and the remedial actions that they've taken. Maybe it would be helpful to summarize that for the board and also provide maybe a more detailed summary as to the allocation of responsibilities under the statute with respect to this stuff, and maybe even the role of the IDA or the role of the EPA review and the PC review, if that would provide more comfort. We could do that.
I think, Rob, that maybe would be helpful overall. I think part of it is, and it's going to be transferred to us, then immediately transferred to First Light, Deer Haven, and just to, clarify in everyone's mind, if contamination is found, exactly whose responsibility. Does it, once we pass title over, would it be for Deer Haven and First Light to communicate directly with the Army if there's an issue? Are we still part of this chain of, I want to say not chain of command, but chain of custody? Or do we essentially, once the title is transferred over, we walk away forever?
Right. Well, the reality is that once you own it, you own some piece of it, right, forever. The contractual provisions with respect to First Light and also Earl Martin, do the best that we can to pass all of that on to them, so that if there is an issue, it's them dealing with the Army. But I guess what I hear is perhaps it would be helpful to summarize, what's been done with respect to these particular pieces of property, in terms of, contamination, remediation, and also a more general summary of what the relative, responsibilities are for prior contamination if something comes up in the future.
And I think the wording of how that is, I think we can have, when you do this, the type of wording that we do with Martins and we do with First Light, basically we can't get rid of the liability once it goes through us. But I think, Rob, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you can basically say, you're accepting this as is. We make no, warranty as to what this is, and you're agreeing you will not come back on us. Now, somebody else could later on, that buys this property. But I think if you had them sign that and say, we're accepting it just as it is, we've read the documents, and we're not holding the IDA liable for anything here, that maybe would help us feel a little more comfortable with it.
Yeah, and you just gave a pretty good summary of what the agreements are, right? So that's the contractual arrangement with First Light. They're all that, basically this is what we have here. You take it. If there's a problem, it's going to be your responsibility to deal with it. In so many words. So. And having a little bit of that to read. I know Pat's been involved with this forever, so obviously, Pat, you're more familiar than any of us with this. I've been here for quite a while, but it's been a long time since I've looked at any of this stuff, and you have some new people here. I think, Rob, just kind of summarizing the things that you're saying, and maybe just, we don't need 50-page reports, but maybe just summarizing that and the wording of those areas with your commentary on it, maybe that would help a little bit. I don't know if there's any way to do that in a more expedited, get that to us and somehow so that we can just do a quick, sign off on this, even with a phone call or something, or maybe because this all has to be public, we could agree to do such contingent upon, certain people reviewing the documents that you have. And frankly, I don't care if it's Steve Brusso as chair and Sarah as executive director. If we all agree as a board to do this, would them agreeing that the documents have been reviewed by us and people that are interested and concerned can read it over. I can read it over. Anybody else can, call them up, by next Wednesday and say, yeah, I get it. I'm willing to go along with this. So that's fine. We've already agreed to it. Or if somebody has a major objection, then I'm sure Steve and Sarah aren't going to proceed with it if that's the case, or Pat or whoever.
Essentially, Tom, looking for a motion to approve this contingent upon the review and acceptance by certain people.
What I think would be the easiest way, so you don't have to have another meeting, I would say that we approve it here. I'd be willing to make that, motion that we approve it with a contingency that some of the members that maybe are interested or have not seen this, that people have, through next Wednesday to read it and go over it. And if you receive no objections, Sarah's the one that's authorized to sign this thing. You're the chairman of the board. If you get no objections from anybody, then or concurrence, then you just move along. It's already been done. If somebody objects and has a complaint and really is concerned with it, and I send it off to our environmental attorney, and they have a problem, I would tell you that. But barring that, then people would have had a chance to review it, and no objections, we move on. But you don't have to have another meeting to do so.
If you feel comfortable, we can actually put off approving it until the March meeting. That gives people more of a chance to review.
That would be better with me, Pat. But again, I don't know what closings. And you say First Light is in a real hurry and everything here. I'm not worried about the Army wanting to hurry up, but other people that are going to get it, I do.
One more month's not going to make a difference. It's been 8 years.
I think it'd be appropriate, Pat. I've got a full faith in you and the process and Rob and whatnot here, but it's been a long time since I've looked at this, and you have new people here that haven't seen any of it. I think it'd be appropriate for the responsibility to have people just take a quick look, have the opportunity to do so, and then we'd be better prepared to approve it at the next meeting.
Okay, I'll work with Rob on something for everyone.
That would be my opinion and my thoughts on it. Obviously, anybody else can give their opinion.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Okay.
So,
right, thank you.
So unless there's any objection, we'll go ahead and just say, get more information out to everybody. And then this will be a topic at our end of March meeting.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Tom. good input. The Fayette, the next item, Fayette, that's being removed from the agenda. So next item up is the update from the Seneca County Chamber of Commerce by Jeff.
Yep. Thanks, Steve. I have a couple bullet points I'll share with the board. As part of the Chamber's most recent strategic plan, there was added an economic and environmental sustainability pillar, and we will be working through that. Our board will be in the coming weeks to really put in place a framework that helps provide collaborative leadership in those areas for the betterment of our community. So it's something that I think is a big step for the chamber, and we will certainly share more information as it progresses. I'd also like to mention that the chamber continues to help coordinate the One Seneca effort. We continue to hold weekly COVID community briefings to update our community, and it really has been updating our community now. It has been extended to the public on the latest efforts, including the vaccination schedule, which has brought a lot of attention lately. The group, I just want to remind our board that the group has brought together a series of industries, businesses, leaders. I'm including government and health, finance, manufacturing, tourism, nonprofits, agriculture. I could go on, but the point here is that it really has been one of the most unifying efforts that I've been a part of, and grateful to Sarah for her leadership and being on that part of the initiative, as well as Mitch Rowe at the county. So I really think that this group, as we continue to move forward, can play a really important role in helping the IDA board move forward on its strategic plan and direction. And then finally, I'll just mention on a couple tourism fronts, there's some really exciting developments happening at the chamber. One is we are launching an expanded digital marketing campaign that will significantly increase the awareness in the digital space. We're doing a lot with search engine ads. So when people go to Google and look for certain things, Seneca County pops up more effectively. And really help attract overnight visitation, which is good for all of us. And then the second major initiative happening on the tourism front at the chamber is we are launching a mobile research project. Actually, we've already launched it. We're into the thick of that. And really what this is going to do is it's going to provide significant data and insights for people, visitors that come to this community that we can share in a collaborative effort to really help make better decisions for how we position our county, how we work within the tourism space. Everything from how many people are coming, where they're coming from, the demographic profile of those people, how long they stay, where else they go when they're in this community. So I think you can begin to see that we're going to get a lot of data points that will really help us refine how we work within this space, how we utilize our tourism industry to help create further economic development. So really excited about those initiatives. And that's all I have, Steve.
Thanks, Jeff. So Don, if you could give a brief summary of any actions from the County Board of Supervisors.
Sure, I'll do the best I can. I was in Florida for 2.5 weeks and talked to the county manager this morning a little while about what has gone on with the board, and unfortunately, it doesn't sound like much has changed. I know that we want to finish up the 14 line and get that settled, and there was some talk in executive session that I'm not sure is ready for public consumption yet. Maybe Sarah wants to add something about that after I'm done with my little speech here, but yeah, it doesn't seem like much else is going on with the county board at this point. I know that they've been working, the chairman has been working hard to try and get more vaccine into the county, and we're one of the last counties to get any vaccine at all. And, you know, from what I see in the news, it doesn't look like more is coming anytime soon. I know that the COVID center for the shots out there at Delago, a lot of people went out there. A lot more people would like the shot, as far as just talking to people in the community. On a side note, the town of Waterloo offices have been closed since the beginning of January, just because COVID around us has been explosive. I mean, everybody that seemed to be in contact with anybody down in the town of Waterloo has been getting COVID, and, you know, that there hasn't been too many deaths that I know of from it, but the exposure rate seemed to be quite high there for a little while, and it seems to have calmed down a little bit. We're going to give it another week and then maybe open our town offices back up to the public again. But there's a lot of concern right now, and it seemed like a lot of people were getting COVID kind of unexplainably, seeing how everything was shut down. So that's probably all I got for right now until we get a little bit further along with whatever kind of action the board wants to take with the 14 line.
Okay, thanks, Don.
Yep.
Next item is an update on general improvements, what's in the pipeline, expectations for 2021. So Sarah, if you could go through that.
Sure, Steve. So included in your briefing memos was a little one-pager from the staff, just highlighting some of the things, you know, that we accomplished last year, which we've gone over at some length at this point. But, you know, just to highlight, so we had 5 project wins last year. We've increased our business retention and expansion program, made quite a few improvements when it comes to our record keeping and goal setting. We created a solar policy for the agency. And then, of course, we've onboarded some new board members. But more importantly, what we wanted to just highlight for all of you today is what to expect in 2021 and some of the things that we have benchmarked as priorities or strategic improvements. And those include, you know, development of the Deer Run Industrial Park, which is owned by the IDA. You know, the pursuit of obviously the Seneca County Economic Development Strategy with the Chamber and the county. That remains a top priority for us. Increasing the IDA's visibility in the community, exploring some sort of industrial development area in the federally designated opportunity zone out near Border City. You know, reviewing and reevaluating the EDC and the Funding Corp's missions and purposes, transferring the operations of Sampson Veterans Memorial Cemetery back to the county this summer, transferring the 414 sewer line to the county, completing the Lowe's water main project, finalizing, you know, what we were discussing today, but the Army transfer of the retained environmental sites at the depot, and then transferring the Sutton Road Airfield deed to the county. So quite a few, you know, major projects and things that are on the horizon this year, just from that list alone. Obviously, there are still plenty of other things that we're looking to take on, but those are the highlights. And then in addition, just so you all have an idea of what metrics we're hoping to hit by the end of this year. So we plan to continue expanding our business retention and expansion program. We did 35 visits in 2020. Our goal for this year is 50. And we would like to secure 6 business expansion or attraction projects in our county. So again, we're looking to increase from last year's numbers. And then we do have a little bit of a breakdown to share with you all. And this is prospective projects that we've been able to keep track of thanks to the new CRM system that we implemented last year. And I do want to preface this with, you know, we certainly don't expect all of these projects to come to fruition in 2020. If they do, these are just ones that we're aware of, potential plans going on in the community that we've been in touch with, and wanted to give you some some idea of what these projects look like. So there's 15 in total at this moment. 7 of them are attraction of either startups or companies outside of our area to our county. 8 would be the expansion of existing county businesses. And if we break that down by location of project interest, we've got 6 that are in the northern part of the county, so town of Fayette north. And then we have 9 that are in the southern part of the county. So obviously anything south of Fayette. And then if we look at those broken down by industry, just to give you all an idea of what types of things are on the horizon, 6 of those, so the majority of the projects in our pipeline right now are in the agriculture industry, whether that's mostly ag manufacturing of some kind. And then we have 2 which are just traditional manufacturing, 3 that would involve wineries or tourism business, 3 for utilities, and 1 in the transportation industry. So that's just to give you an idea of what types of things we're seeing right now. I'm happy to answer questions if anybody has them. Obviously, we can't discuss specifics of projects or company names at this point. None of this is, concrete enough for that. But like I said, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Good. When's the transfer of the cemetery supposed to take place?
End of June. So
I think Steve told me the other day when we talked, and I forget, end of June it is? Yeah.
End of June, yep. So beginning of July, the cemetery will be operationally back under the county's umbrella.
Okay.
Yeah, if there's not any more questions here?
Yeah, I just had one other. Is the billing and the receivables going okay with the sewer line? Are we doing okay after that was set up to collect funds on because the setup was to collect some money based on repairs and stuff that had to be done on the sewer line. Is that in process?
Our negotiations with the county on the sewer line transfer issue have somewhat stalled. Happy to share further details of the specifics with you all when we go into executive session to discuss some other contract issues. But it's not moving forward at the rate we had originally hoped.
Okay.
Yeah, so again, what this is, STIRS and staff have put this together to really give a good idea to the board what's going on, sort of behind the scenes, projects coming up, different activities going on. If there's any other suggestions or anything else someone would like to see, please let Sarah know, and can always add those to this.
This is Valerie. I just have a comment. I think the getting out and visiting businesses, doing that more and more by Sarah is great. I think that's the best way to build support and following and hopefully future assistance to some of those businesses.
Thanks, Valerie. That's the goal. Certainly, it's been tough with COVID. Us choosing to try to expand that program more this year is potentially still going to be tricky. Obviously, as Don was mentioning, the town of Waterloo has had to go remote because of, the continued increase in cases. So that has been somewhat of a hindrance, but even so far this year, we've still managed to get out and visit a few businesses in person and touch base with others over the phone or by email. So I'm pretty confident that we'll still be able to hit our mark, and I certainly think it's only positive for the IDA to be doing that kind of outreach.
Absolutely, I agree. And you can stand outside in the field for the ag projects.
Exactly.
Don, just a comment for Don there. There's so many businesses that are up and running that are essential businesses and so on. And with us, we've had COVID issues and so on that, and we've been doing tons and tons of contact tracing. I'm sitting in New Jersey right now, and down here in Pennsylvania and New York, in all of our locations, and more times than not, the contact tracing leads back to from home, not at work, that where we find that they're getting it. So these people that think they can't go to work and do it safely, they're full of baloney, So he's shutting down, and these schools shutting down, and I see bankers and winery people, they're all sitting there at work, I'm pretty sure, So there's ways to do it. So I don't know, Don. I know the town of Waterloo and the county buildings, and I'll think they got to shut down. But man, oh man, the lost productivity is unbelievable. Us, for one, are getting pretty tired of delays in state agencies and DMVs and all the stuff that we got to deal with in our business. But I don't know. It can be done. It can be done safely,
Yeah, I just got back from Florida and nothing shut down there. I mean, they don't even wear their masks. Their bars and restaurants are open till 3 a.m. I mean, it's like it was in 2019. And, the only reason we shut down the town office is because everybody was getting COVID and nobody was going out and doing anything at night. And then these people in my office, there's only 3 of them in there. 2 of them ended up getting COVID, and then half the highway department had COVID. It was just like, where is this coming from? How is this happening? And it was just really bizarre. This isn't the bar crowd that I'm talking about. These people were they were scared of COVID, and they caught it somehow. And I think it's probably related to going to the grocery store or something like that. So, with having to collect taxes and water bills, it was, my staff was freaked out, and they were pretty much begging me to close and kind of go the route of drop boxes in the mail to collect this sort of stuff. And I kind of went along with them, but I'm in agreement with you. I think that, everything should be open. That's just my philosophy on it. And, let herd immunity or whatever take over, and, let it be whatever it's going to be. I mean, clearly the state that I just came from is doing well with it. And, their numbers don't seem to be drastically different than the states that are closing. So I don't know what the answer is exactly. It seemed like everybody in Waterloo was getting COVID around January for some reason. I don't know what the contributing factor was there exactly.
Yeah, it's strange, but okay.
I believe there's no other business. So with that, I request a motion to enter into executive session under Public Officers Law, Article 7, Section 105, to discuss the financial, credit, or employment history of a particular corporation or matters leading to the approval of a contract for a particular corporation.
I'll make a motion. This is Steve.
Second?
Valerie, second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. So we'll go into executive session. Executive session. Will be no action taken due to any discussions in executive session. With no other business, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone want to stay? No? So we're out of the IDA meeting, and we're going to go into the Seneca County EDC meeting. So anyone who Anyone who wants to can stay in it. Otherwise, we'll start the EDC meeting.
This is Valerie.
So,
and
Valerie, it's all yours.
it's all mine for about one item. I'd like to bring to order the Economic Development Corporation annual meeting today. And the first item of business is the election of EDC officers for 2021. And the slate consists of Steve Brusso as chair, Jeff Shipley as vice chair, and Tom Keim as secretary treasurer. And I guess I could call for other nominations, but there are no other people on the board. So could I have a motion to accept that slate?
I'll make the motion.
Jeff, is that you?
Yes, it is.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, Tom. All in favor? Do I have to do a roll call vote on this?
There's so few of you, I'm sure you can just.
Okay. Okay.
Just
all in favor of the slate as suggested?
Aye.
Yes. Aye.
Any opposed? I think I heard 4 people. Okay, Steve, it is all yours.
Thank you, Valerie. You are so kind. You're certainly welcome to stay on if you'd like. All up to you.
Oh, I thought I might.
Yes, good. And feel free to comment. So first item or second item on the agenda is the approval of the EDC meeting minutes of December 3rd. Can I have a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second, Steve.
Okay. So all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now the financial statements, also Bob went through and did a annual summary for the EDC and the cemetery, the Veteran Memorial Cemetery. So Bob, if you could just briefly go through the annual statements.
Oh, yes, thank you. Starting with the EDC, on a comparative basis between December 2020 and December 2019. Looking at total assets, at 2020, they measured 1,047,595 compared to 1,069,376 at the end of 2019. That's a small difference of about $21,000. There's no liabilities other than there's no liabilities at that point. And the equity position, again, measured 1,047,595 against 1,069,376 position at the end of December 2019. Biggest items on the balance sheet again is the amount that's referred to as due from other funds, and that is an intercompany transfer between the EDC and the cemetery. I would point out a couple things here. We have historically, on a reporting basis, separated the reporting for the EDC and the cemetery as 2 separate documents. But the reality is it's really one enterprise. So on a consolidated basis, if I was to look at a balance sheet considering both entities combined, we have an interesting situation. As I mentioned previously, the assets of the EDC measured $1,047,000, which includes an intercompany receivable of $841,000 from the cemetery. The cemetery reflects assets of $29,000 in total, but a significant liability on their balance sheet of $841,000. Combining both entities together, assets would then read $1,077,000, which takes the EDC assets and cemetery assets and puts them both together. But for statement purposes, when we get to the audit, the one thing that takes place here is an elimination. And the elimination is for $841,000 from the assets, along with a corresponding reduction in liabilities that's reflected for the cemetery. So when we get all said and done, what happens is the final balance sheet would reflect the following: total assets of $236,000, which in this case is cash, combining the cash of the cemetery and the EDC, against liabilities of $139,000, which is basically the payable that's due by the cemetery at year-end 2020. So the balance sheet is basically shrunk dramatically. So we end up with cash position $236, a liability of $139, and a net equity of $236,000, which is again the difference between the assets and the liability of $139. When we had the audit completed, this is what's going to show up as far as the balance sheet on a consolidated basis.
Yeah, Bob?
Yes.
I'm Tom. Just a question. Seeing we haven't done that in the past, why is it that we're doing that now? And the only reason I ask is if we're this year here shortly going to turn the cemetery over to the county, and right now we show a huge liability and deficit. If we do this and then show we have whatever $250,000 of cash and no liability, isn't the county going to say, well, we'll take the cemetery over, but we want that $250,000 of cash?
That's our money, though. The $250,000, $236 is our dollars. It's our money. It's not the cemetery's money. It's not the county's money. It's our money.
Right. Oh no, I know that, but you know, the logic doesn't always fall in place here, and so and you clarify it for me. You're saying here to do eliminations. Are we going to end up then presenting a statement for the EDC that basically shows a net worth of $259,000 in cash of $250,000, which is the combined EDC and cemetery?
In previous years, the audit would reflect the consolidated basis with eliminations. Yeah. So that has not changed, that situation. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Just with what we're going through today, I just hoping we don't end up with a county.
I know you're concerned, but you know the reality is we treated the two entities sort of separately, even though they're not. But the auspices of the cemetery are under the auspices of the EDC on a combined basis.
This is Valerie. I have a question about that money that will look very attractive to any number of entities. Could we, how can we spend it? And should we make a plan so that we can say, or you all can say, we have a plan for that money and this is what it is?
Well, I think that's something that Sarah has mentioned earlier in our meeting, that we need to do look at EDC as to what it is and what it will become if it needs to change. And that would be part of that.
Yeah, so that would be part of it, is figuring out, what do we do with the EDC without the cemetery? What types of activities can the EDC do? So that is definitely something that we want to look at, and it would be beneficial to have a plan in place in regards to the EDC prior to the transfer of the cemetery, so that, you know, that funding may be spoken for.
Yeah, you know, absolutely. I think that's critical. Where did that money come from?
A lot of that came from the agreement with Finger Lakes Rail. Some of those fees, part of that.
Yeah, at one time, Finger Lakes Rail used to pay rent for rail storage, car storage, things like that.
And that's historic numbers.
So that money really doesn't have any federal or
It has nothing to do with the cemetery at all to begin with. Yeah.
Yeah, I just was concerned if the money came from a state or federal source that it would have strings attached, but it sounds like it doesn't.
It does not. You know, when you talk about the situation with the sewer line, here we are. Over time, we have transferred out of the coffers of the EDC $841,000 to support the cemetery operations over a 10-year period. That's all those dollars were transferred from the EDC directly to the cemetery to support the operations of the cemetery over the time that we had it under our auspices. It's crazy.
Yep. Well, and Bob, it's not just those expenses. It really is. Basically, the state said if they didn't accept the cemetery and the county didn't figure a way out to do this, and we were the ones that made that solution viable or happen.
That's right.
There was about $5 million of loans and grants that they had given to the county for building the cemetery. And they basically said, we're going to demand that back for the terms, that and the fact that don't bother asking us for any more, for anything else.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there was some huge benefits that were the right things to do for the county, which is why the EDC and the IDA, whatever, did it. It was the right thing to do, but I don't think most people understand it or know the facts behind it.
That's right. And then there was times when our requests for $54,000
yeah.
coming from the county coffers to support the IDA were denied. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
God.
Oh, thanks, Bob. Any other questions on the financials for EDC?
No.
If not, move on to the committee appointments. With 3 members of the EDC, as everybody's on all the committees. Congratulations. And next we have approval of the EDC resolutions, and that was broken up, taking group 1, the banking institutions, out as a separate resolution. So the first resolution is the designation of banking institutions. So can I have a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion, Steve. This is Jeff.
And I guess, I'll second that.
Yeah, I need to abstain.
Yes. So, I guess I'll do a roll call. Jeff?
Yes.
Yes, I agree. Yes. Tom abstains. So motion carried. Second set, unless someone has an objection, we'd like to group the following resolutions together. The one on check signatures, legal counsel, corporation auditors, CEO, CFO, and accountant bookkeeper. If no one has any, or if anyone has an objection, we can separate those out further. If not,
Nope.
can I have a motion to approve as a group?
So made.
I'll second.
Okay, well, we'll do roll call. Tom,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
yeah, and Steve with yes. Next item is just everyone should have received the board annual disclosure forms. So please get that back to Kelly. Then other business.
So we have one item that we need to add to the agenda under other business. And this is discussion of a new contract with Humphrey Memorial for the cemetery. So we got notice from Humphrey Memorial that the price of the headstones has increased from $675 per headstone to $690. Our contract, which was last, I think, renegotiated in 2019, designated, we would pay $675 per headstone. So they're seeking approval of an increase to the contract to $690. Needs to be approved by the EDC board.
Okay. So
Here.
looking for a motion to change the contract for that.
Sounds
And
like we
you're
should.
happy with their work and everything, Sarah?
That's really for Bill Yale to say, but
Yeah.
to my knowledge, he has been happy with their work. Obviously, any additional contract that we do will have to be only effective through the end of our operations, and then
Yep.
it's to the county to decide. But it's a pretty small increase overall. And like I said, we didn't have an increase in 2020. The last time we had negotiated the rate, to my knowledge, was 2019. So we got a couple of years at the same rate, and it's gone up $15. And this rate, according to Kelly, and Kelly, correct me if I'm stating this wrong, won't actually impact the finances of the EDC or the cemetery, because this cost gets then billed directly to, the cemetery's customers, to their families.
Right.
They would see the increase in the headstone fee. So there won't be a net impact to our finances as a result of this.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. It appeared to me it was just a pass-through expense. So, yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
So with that said, can I have a motion to approve the increase for Humphrey Memorials?
I'll move that.
I'll second.
Okay. So roll call. Tom,
Yes.
Jeff.
Yes.
Yeah, this is Steve. Yes. Motion carried. Any other business?
I have a question about the Dropbox that we had talked about putting out at the cemetery for contributions made there. Has that finally been done?
Yes, it was done a few months ago.
Right.
I don't believe we've seen any donations during that time through the Dropbox, but it is there. It is locked. It's I
It's
think
available.
office.
Yeah.
And our auditors who are actually were in town this week doing the audit of the IDA, they're aware that we made the correction. So that's all positive.
That correction will also be so noted when they do the review of the management letter from last year as being a satisfied issue.
No need for any executive session.
Not that I can think of.
With that, I'd like to conclude business today. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Steve.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So we're done with the EDC meeting. And again, thank you, Valerie, for everything over these last 5+ years.
All right. Thank you, Valerie.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Valerie.